there are other details that make the desktop experience different from mobiles. Namely, we want to give the user more feedback whenever the mouse is used or whenever any element is highlighted. One of the things we need to take care of are hover states. Unfortunately, React Native macOS still doesn't have very support for many of the actions that you would expect, keyboard events and hover states and other details. So we're gonna work around some of these issues by using undocumented APIs. These APIs might change in the future, but they might also establish themselves. So we're just gonna use them for now. So we're gonna start by using hover state. I'm gonna go into my button component, and inside of the button component we have the touchable opacity component, right? And so this touchable opacity component has a few undocumented properties that we will take advantage of. One of them is the onMouse enter prop, which takes a function. And I'm just gonna do something like set is hovered to true. The other function that we need is onMouse leave, and I'm gonna use this as false. So I need some internal state into my component, right? Just to tell it it's currently being hovered. So I'm gonna use a hook for that. It's a simple use state hook, and it's gonna start as false. Now you can see, because these are undocumented and they're not really part of React Native, of the pure types of React Native, that we're gonna have to ignore the type error for now, right? We're just gonna tell the TypeScript compiler, don't worry about it. We know it doesn't exist on the types. We're still gonna use it. And then we're gonna use our small trick that we did before to change our styles. Let me change this into our CW function. And what else do I need to change? Oops. This one. And I'm just gonna say, to make my life a little bit easier, let me think about this. So I'm gonna change the font size is okay. So I'm gonna say my font is bold whenever my button is hovered. So now if I go into my application and I hover over my button, you can see the font getting bold. Now this is not perfect because, like I said, React Native macOS is still not super polished around this event. So for example, if I would have another element on top of my button, it would still trigger the onHover state, right? Right now, React Native macOS, it doesn't do any bubbling, right? It doesn't prevent that if there is any element on top of this element, then it doesn't trigger the onMouse enter option, right? So let's say I put another view in here. I'm going to make this absolutely position. This is just to show you guys what this does, and I'm gonna say this is a background. What does this show? Okay, great. So I'm gonna make this, does that cover it a little bit? Yeah, great. So here you can see, even though that there is an element, or I can actually move this because right now this is inside of my touchable opacity, so it makes sense. But if I move this outside of it, and I am just going to let me think about this. I'm going to pass the right 0. Okay, perfect. Right, so now you can see my touchable opacity is the one that has the onMouse enter and mouse leave, and I have a view on top of this touchable opacity. So in theory, you would expect that the on mouse enter or leave function wouldn't trigger, but it does, right? Unfortunately, this is one of the things that currently not working. Maybe in the future it will get solved, but for now we just kind of have to live with it. So make sure, whenever you have any overlay, things will look a little bit broken. So try to make your overlays not overlap any element that might have a hover state. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. There is one more detail that we're gonna take a look into. So depending on your macOS settings, let me just show it to you. Sometimes, or some users might have keyboard navigation on. So that means whenever I am on my application and I click on a button, or just here for example, right? I could use my keyboard to highlight different UI elements. But sometimes you might have a hovering box, which messes with your design. Let's just say that, right? So you might want to disable this. So in order to do this, we're gonna use another undocumented API. I'm going to go into my books container, and on my touchable opacity for my books, I'm going to add the enable focus ring prop, and I'm gonna set it to false. Now again, because this is undocumented and there is no way to type check it, I'm just gonna disable it like that. And now you see it's not visible anymore, right? So there's a ton of little details like this that you might have to take a look to think about how your app is interacting on a desktop and what are the differences of it interacting on a mobile device. But these are just two examples that should kind of give you an idea what's important to keep an eye out for.